to our Meet the Parents podcast, the show where we share stories from everyday life to help with the ups and downs of parenting. We'll have honest conversations as together we grow everyday faith in our homes. Be sure to follow us on your favourite podcast provider or check out the video version on YouTube. All show notes and episodes can be found at livingrock.church/Meet the Parents.
Hi, I'm Alex and married to Lisa with 3 children aged between 17 and 21. We know our experiences of parenting are all very different and we want to hear from different families about what they've tried, tested, succeeded and failed at. So together we can learn how God wants us to grow families that love Him. This podcast is a place to explore that wonderful variety.
And today we're going to chat about home educating our children. It's becoming a more common, popular method of educating, and we're going to explore that with a couple of our guests today who are back, returned. We've not scared them off completely, and we're looking forward to digging into the reasons why and what the challenges may be, and we'll come on to that more later.
Wonderful. So welcome Holly and Megan. Wonderful. Thank you for coming back again. This is so wonderful to have you. Thank you so much. And I'm looking forward. This is great. And so just remind us of your families and a best parenting memory.
So I have 4 children. They are...
I think you had 3 last time.
I might have. I've added another one since then. They are now 9, 7, 4 and 2.
Well done.
Yes. And best parenting memory. I think just generally a nice moment that I noticed just the other day that made me realise just how great my kids are sometimes is when they all play nicely together. And when the older 2 take the younger 2 under their wing, and was it last night or the night before, they just took them both upstairs, got them ready for bed, did their teeth, and then when I went upstairs they were both reading to them in their own bedrooms.
Oh, I love that.
Their own story. And I
Don't cry, Meg.
I know, that's just beautiful. That's a bottom-up memory, isn't it? It's like quick saver.
I'll just go down and have another gin and tonic.
So yeah, and completely unprompted. It wasn't sort of like go and do that for me to help. It was just, we want to do this and we're going to go and read to them. I was like, oh,
Very nice.
Beautiful.
cute. Yeah, that's mine.
So I only have 3 children still. I've not added any more in my household. And they are 10, 7 and 5. And similarly to Meg, really, probably like the best memories really are just as they're growing up, just seeing their relationships like together is just a really, really wonderful, really wonderful thing.
Okay, so we'd like to hear some funny stories from you guys because we need to keep it real here. Because you said all this wonderful thing about how they get on so well and everything's lovely. Obviously that isn't all the time, but we also have our funny stories and real life check-ins. So Meg, do you want to go first? And let us know your funny story today.
Yeah, so Rosa, my youngest, 2-year-old at the minute, and this is not from me. She definitely does not get this from me.
Of course.
But every time at the minute she is naked to go in the bath or has a nappy changed or anything, she sticks her bum in the air and goes, booty, booty! I don't know where that's from, but it just makes us laugh like every day, several times a day. It's just our little highlight of the day from Rosa's little twerk.
That's so cute. I love that she's so free. She can just do that
every time.
Amazing.
Wonderful.
Okay, Rosa.
Love it.
Amazing.
How about you, Holly?
So I was thinking about my littlest, and on Sunday at church we had a fire drill. And on the drive home from church, I always like to ask the kids what they did in class today. And she's got this little sass coming through at the moment. So we're driving back from church and she goes, well, in my class, we did this really annoying thing. We all had to hold a hoop and walk down the stairs at the slowest pace I have ever walked at. And then we had to walk back upstairs. She was like, I don't know why, but it was such a waste of my class. Normally she comes out with, the Bible story they learn or, the activities
Clearly
that
a trauma
did.
for her.
She was like, it was the slowest pace I have ever had to walk out.
As someone in that group, it was quite a moment.
They are working.
I can understand her feelings.
They've already changed it, haven't they? So they're going to be quicker next time.
Be quicker
They have already changed it.
Yes. It
Wonderful.
Was an interesting moment.
We're here to talk about home education. And it's a wonderful topic that some people know a lot about, some people know a little bit less about, stereotypes around it as well. But first, just generally, why did you choose to home educate your children, and what makes it a great choice for your family?
Okay, so before we get into the nitty-gritty, I think it's really important to state that home education is just one option for providing education for your children in the UK. The law states that every child must be educated in school or otherwise. And so what Meg and I are going to be talking about today is the otherwise part of that. It's also important to understand that the current UK government fund education in schools, but anything outside of that is self-funded. We're going to be talking about our personal journeys and our personal convictions and our approaches to education. But it's also important to say that you could meet many other home ed families who would all have a completely different approach to home education. So just as there's different approaches to parenting and life and eating, there are many diverse approaches to home education.
Wonderful. So you're basically saying some of the things he's going to sound is that you do is diverse.
Well, yeah. But also
You've already described that your family with
Yeah.
babies twerking, so
it is diverse, but within home education,
Yeah.
there's a huge diversity.
Yes.
So
this is good.
this is very much our story,
Yeah.
and you could meet somebody who did it in a very, very different way.
Yeah. So to answer the question why I chose to home educate, initially I didn't really realise it was an option before I had children and a young child. And it wasn't until I realised that I was surrounded by families that were home educating when my eldest was about 2 or 3 in an old church that we went to. I realised there was a couple of families home educating and wondered why they did that, and started to ask them loads of questions and research and prayed about it. And I just really felt that I was called to home educate my children. I went and approached Scott, my husband, and was like, I think this is what we need to do. And started to kind of drip feed ideas to him, and
Wonderful.
Sounds great.
that's why we did it.
Great choice. Yeah. How about you, Holly, then? Why?
I always thought the same, that I would want to homeschool if I lived in America.
Mm-hmm.
But then, like Meg, I realised it was an option here when I was, I'd applied for a school place for my eldest, and then I started to look into it, and there was lots of things at that point that I thought, I'm not so sure that that's what I want for him. I started to research it, and I am a real homebody. I love family time. I love being with my kids. I see being my kid's mum as a God-given mission, and I really see my home as a training ground to prepare my kids for life and all that comes with it. So I'm just going to read you a quote, actually, which is from Sally Clarkson and her book, Awaking Wonder. Sally Clarkson is a huge inspiration to me as a home educating mum, but she says this: every child is a miracle, every single one. Each is born as a seedbed of potential for loving, thinking, creating, giving, working, and so much more. Yet they also come into the world fragile, vulnerable, and dependent upon those who would care for their needs and shape their foundations for life. Their physical, emotional, and mental development, as well as their spiritual formation, in short, those who influence, love, and care for a child, are shaping the destiny and possibilities of that child's whole life. Every parent is a teacher, every single one. They are the ones most closely connected to their child and who have the most personal, emotional investment in seeing that their child grows healthy and strong. They have more weight in the long-term development of who their child becomes than anyone else who cares for their child. And that quote for me encapsulates so much of why I chose to home educate my children and why it's a great choice for me.
Wonderful. And what's interesting with that is that when I was before I did my teacher training, because I've been a teacher in school for 20 years, I worked in a school before I did my teacher training, and the first teacher I worked with, she pulled all the parents into the classroom and she went through a government report, and she'd highlighted in yellow everywhere, and it was all to do with early reading, and everywhere it said parent, 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 parent.
Yeah.
And she showed the parent the report with all the yellow and flicked through and said, this is what the report says about your involvement, and it says your involvement is more important than my involvement in the report, which is so interesting because that was like an earliest memory from me learning on that sort of education journey, the importance of the parent as teacher, which is fascinating.
Yeah.
And I think in the Bible we see a lot about how it's the parent role to train up the child in the way they should go, and you're perfectly placed for that. And I believe God's given each of us our children specifically because He knows we're the best place to do that of all the people in the world. There's a very specific mission for us as a parent, isn't there? Which I love.
There is. Yeah.
So I think it's interesting how you're translating that in your schooling. So I'm going to ask a question. So why did you not send your children to mainstream school, as in going into a school? And what other reasons might other parents have? Because obviously you've talked about different options different parents might make homeschool look like. So they might come from different backgrounds, different reasons for choosing not to be anti or pro.
Yeah.
So I think for me, it was more that I chose to home educate because of the benefits and lots of what Holly's just shared, rather than I didn't want to send my child to school. So there might be some parents that have a past trauma from their own personal childhood, or their child has been in school and struggled for whatever reason, and therefore sending them to school is not the option, so therefore I need to find another way to educate my child. Whereas for me, it was never that. It was always the benefit of home educating rather than I'm not sending my child to school, if that makes sense. So yeah, I wanted our family values to be the main influence in our children's lives. I wanted the children to have the freedom of childhood, not be restricted with time schedules and the day, just having time to play, especially in the younger years, and tailoring their education to suit them. So lots of different benefits of home education rather than not sending them to school.
Yeah, I think there is lots of people that aren't sending them to school, like you say, for so many reasons. You know, people are struggling with lack of funding, and then one-on-one help, and kind of the individual nature of learning is just not there in the same way. So I think there is many people that are coming out of the school system into home education. It is growing massively. But I'm the same as Meg. There were a few things about schools that put me off, one of which I'm going to come on to later, actually, when I talk more about faith. But there was a lot of things coming up in the media that at the time I felt that if I was in that situation, I would do the same as some of the parents had done. And we'll come on to that later. But for me, at this point, it's the same, mostly the same as Meg. There were a few things about school that perhaps put me off, but it was the benefits that really drew me to it. Complete autonomy of my child's learning, for me, is such a huge thing. And going at a pace that works for me and my children. Actually, that's been one of the hardest things to be okay with, is not working to school holidays and actually working when it works for us, and breaking out of that rhythm of I've got to have 6 weeks off here and I've got to have 2 weeks off here. And actually we are less and less working like that. We have actually taken a summer break this year, but actually through this year we moved away from the school system in terms of half terms and things like that, and we kind of did a 3 weeks on, 1 week off type situation, which for me worked really well. We did 3 weeks of me really teaching and being involved, and then we did 1 week where they do like what I call bread and butter days, which are like skeleton learning. They do a bit of maths, bit of reading. So kind of pulling away from that has been really good for me. But in our household, it's been a real benefit, because I have 3 children who, if we look at learning to read, all three of my children have learnt completely differently how to read. So I had a reluctant reader, and then I had one who has found it really, really challenging, couldn't physically get letters for a very long time. And then I've now got one who's finding it fairly easy. But the beauty of home ed in this instance, sorry, when I say home ed, I mean home education. I just keep...
We're all, yeah, I'm on that now. Just yeah, roll with it.
I keep saying it, don't I?
No, that's fine.
But the benefit of that has been that our children haven't needed to do that by a certain time. And so it's not mattered that one of them struggled and taken a lot longer, or it didn't matter that one of them really didn't want to do it for a while, because we just learned in a different way, and we've brought that in. But yeah, as I was saying earlier, in terms of our faith as well, one of the huge benefits for me is giving my children a really good grounding in what we believe are foundational truths in life before they then go and encounter the world's views. So I don't shield or shelter my children from everything, but it gives me the choice of how I want to approach topics, issues, current world situations. I get to choose what they can handle in terms of exposure and how I want to talk to them about those things, which for me, that is a negative of the school system. There you go, Alex. You wanted
What's
me
that?
is that I then get to be in control
You're the
first
filter.
what information they get and when they get that. And that's, like I say, not shielding them from it, but just me choosing when and how we approach that information.
That's good. I suppose also we haven't mentioned that the state school system is the free, but then we also have a private school system where you can pay, and smaller class sizes, and children tend to get higher exam results from that. So there's just if anyone's listening, they don't know about the system in the UK. It's there's private as well, isn't there?
Yeah.
But wonderful.
I think one of the other main points for us as well, like I said, I was kind of drip feeding this idea with my husband for quite a while. But we carried on with the norm of trying to send our eldest to preschool because she turned 3 and that's what you do. And it was only when we took her for a couple of taster days and they didn't know that she was supposed to be there, and the staff were very unsure. They didn't know which room to put her in, and we just felt really uneasy. I mean, maybe that was another sign from God that this is putting on our hearts, that this is not kind of where we wanted to send her. But yeah, my husband definitely said that was kind of the trigger point for me, that this is our most precious thing, and we love her so much that they don't even know that she's supposed to be there. Like, can we kind of trust them to look after them as well as we could, and love them and care for them as well as we could? And I'm sure there are amazing teachers and nursery workers out there that love their children dearly, but for us and our child and our situation, that was a real why are we doing this? We can care for them at home.
I suppose you're answering you're thinking about some fundamental questions, aren't you? And you're having to deal with those quite early on, aren't you? And it's just big questions that you have to think about and then take responsibility for, isn't it? So that it's big stuff, isn't it? Fantastic. Yeah. So it says, what have you found to be the benefits of home educating, so practically and spiritually? So just going into a little bit more detail, how does home educating enable you to sort of nurture the faith at home?
So practically, we have cheaper holidays. That's always good.
That's why you do it.
That's a winner in itself.
That is the win. But like Holly said about changing our schedules to suit our family and having more trips, cheaper trips out of school holidays, visiting places that we've learnt about. We can also tailor the days. If our children haven't slept very well, then we can start later. Or so just practically, those are some of our massive benefits. We also stayed up late a few times to watch the harvest moon, and that was some of the best memories that the kids have of sitting in the field. Night. We've done it a couple of times, haven't we? And sat and had hot chocolate until 10 o'clock, but they didn't need to get up the next day, so it was we just go with the flow and tailor our needs for our children. So that's practically for us. Spiritually, the kids just spend time with us, so they see our lives. We can have discussions all day, read the Bible, obviously pray in devotion times. We tend to do that in the morning, which obviously some families wouldn't have the chance to do that because of getting ready for school and work and things. So that's a massive benefit for us, that we actually get the time to sit and in an unrushed time to do that. But they also just live their life with us. So they see us living our life, making the meal for a friend that's had a baby, and taking the flowers round to somebody that's lost a loved one, or just being kind in the supermarket to the lady in front of us. Anything like that, just living our life. I've actually got a little quote from Charlotte Mason, is kind of method of education philosophy that we both follow, but obviously there are many other methods of education out there. But she talks about education being an atmosphere, a discipline, and a life. So I think the atmosphere of our home, the ideas that rule our lives, like we said, the intrinsic learning that they experience with the people that we connect with, the books that we have around our house, and we're bringing education to life through these living ideas.
I love that. Yeah, really interesting. That's really
wonderful, isn't it? I suppose,
what an opportunity.
yeah, because we've just been on holiday to France as well, and just thinking about about culture and the way people do things, and just do things because that's what culture does. And you can drive for 5 hours and you get a different culture and a different way of doing things. But there's so many different ways and different communities. And this is what I love about this podcast, that we're exploring different ways of doing things that work for different people, and it's just fascinating.
Yeah.
It's so valuable to be able to learn in that way, isn't it?
Yeah.
Which is wonderful.
Yeah, so I put exactly the same, really. It's the life lived. My kids get to see me doing life fully. They learn from all aspects of my spiritual life, which is all day because of our rhythms and the way that they're with me. They don't just hear me tell them how to live. They see me living it out, and I think they're really valuable lessons. Like Meg said, the mornings aren't rushed. So one, for me, that's a huge benefit because I get to spend a really good time with God, which really sets me up for my day of home educating. That is a huge anchor for me, being at home with the kids, is having that time with the Lord in the morning. And we're not rushing, which is great. My kids know that I'm doing that. They know that I'm taking that time. They, some of the most precious things recently has been them coming and sitting with me whilst I'm doing that, or me going into the other room and finding them with their Bible, or that's really special to me. And that is one of the major benefits, is that they're learning from me and from my life of devotion to the Lord. And I can't think of anything better to pass on to my children.
We've said in a lot of our podcasts about how there's that passage in Deuteronomy about is part of your everyday life. It's the walking, the talking, the put it on your doorposts. And I think that sounds like very much a lived out experience for your children every day, isn't it? That it's intrinsic in all the elements of your life. So when you have a bad day, how do you manage that? How do you overcome how we say sorry in the normal, and you get to manage and train in those settings, I guess, in a way that you couldn't in a school. In the same way.
So I suppose, just as a disclaimer here, your mornings and days aren't like havens of peace 100% of the time. You do
absolutely not.
There you go. Don't need to say anymore.
That's why I need to rely on the Lord. There is all of that. But one other benefit for me, just to come on to, is time, and having, it's like what you were just saying, having that time for me, being in charge of our time, basically. I'm not on anybody else's schedule. We do go to groups and we do have things that we have to get up for and that sort of thing, but there's not a rush. My kids are on dance camp this week, and I've had to get them up and out of the house and be there on somebody else's schedule. And I'm obviously not, that's not my skill set these days. But it just made me really appreciate, again, what we actually have with the time that we have because of home education. So that is a big benefit to me.
I like the idea of a steady pace.
Yeah.
That's my kind of
That's just because
language.
we're on the other side of 50.
We're also talking about gentle paces in our rhythms at home, aren't we? So it's quite interesting. So I guess for me, one of the things I've often thought about with home education is your mum, but you're also a teacher. How do you balance that, and how do you manage the discipline when you've got 3 or 4 children all needing different things? How do you balance the parenting disciplines?
So I appreciate the question, and I understand why you would ask this. But for me, I would say that you need to think about it quite differently, because it doesn't look anything like school at home, which I think is probably where you're coming from with the question. You've been a teacher, but actually learning is just a part of our home life. It's a part of our family rhythms. I'm not a teacher. I'm always mum, and we learn together. Obviously, I guide and I lead and I have authority as their parent, but I'm not a teacher in the way that you would think of it. I'm alongside my children, guiding them, and I model a life of learning alongside my children. For me, learning is a lifelong skill. I want to create in my children that they become lifelong learners.
And that is a feature of home ed, isn't it?
Yeah.
That the child learns to be a learner, and there's there's a developing of self-discipline in there, isn't it? Which is just one aspect that I don't know much about it, but that's one thing I've learned.
Yes, that is very true. And discipline happens, just like in any other house. You know, like we said earlier, sometimes it is carnage in the morning, and sometimes everybody's in a grump, and you have all of those things. And sometimes, you know, we're mid-history when 2 of my kids start fighting. But it's just the same as any other activity you would do with your kids at home. You know, if your kids are fighting while they're playing Lego, you just stop and you deal with it. And it's just the same as that with learning is just a part of our life. But yeah, it's not always peaceful because we are normal people. But we have rhythms and we have structure that I have worked really hard to build in since they were little. So even though we didn't always do lots when they were little, we built the rhythms in from the start. So they're expected to listen well, and they are expected to be quiet at certain times, but we've worked up to it. I didn't start by reading a whole chapter of a book and expecting them to sit there, whereas now I can read for a good chunk of time in the morning and they'll sit and they'll listen because we've built up to it. But I remember when we first started out, me and Meg would be like, I managed to read 2 sentences today, and they listened. Yay! And that was where we started. But we both have worked really hard at building up from the beginning and just putting those structures in. And they now know that that's what we do. That's the rhythm. Mum is reading to us. And actually, she normally reads stuff that's really interesting. And then we have a really good discussion about it. And so, yeah, it's just a learned habit that we've worked on. But, yeah, it's always clear. It's always communicated so my kids know what to expect.
Wonderful. Just on, because I'm with reading, what if, say, one of your children is not enjoying the book? Kind of how would just surprise you with this question, but how would you sort of manage that feedback if one of them goes, I really don't like this book, or hopefully they wouldn't just say, it's boring, because would you have a discussion about it? Would you kind of go, why? Or would you say, look, wait a bit more till we get into it? Or
do you want to answer that one? Or
exactly that.
Yeah.
Exactly that. So there are going to be topics or books or things that we come across that some children aren't going to enjoy. And some things it is something that we're going to have to power through. And actually, if you actually listen, it gets to the good bit. Or sometimes we all just think, actually, this book isn't suiting our purpose, or this actually isn't not the right thing for our family. So, yeah, we're going to start reading that.
That's the joy, isn't
we're
it?
quite good at, we're quite good at encouraging each other in that, aren't we?
Yeah.
Because we chat to each other regularly. We have a life group of home educating mums where we all encourage each other. And we often will catch each other. We have a little catch up and we'll say, hey, have you realised it doesn't sound like that book's serving you as a family, because sometimes you don't notice when you're in it, do you? I remember I can't remember what it was, one of the books that you lent me, and I was slogging away, and Meg was like, if you don't want to read it, don't read it. And I was like, Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I don't need to.
That's got to be
Actually,
in
yes,
us, isn't
Have
it?
that
Thank you
autonomy, you
for-
are
yeah.
allowed to choose.
I'm
home.
going to put it down actually because it's not serving our family. And one of those books for us, I'll just share. It's quite funny. We did The Longest Winter or The Long Winter by Laura Ingalls Wilder.
Yes.
It's one of the
Little
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 House.
House on the Prairie books. Yeah,
I love those.
and it's a really wonderful book, but I don't want to give too much away. But it is a really long,
It's a long
winter.
It's a long winter.
And they can't go out from what I remember, can they?
They can't go out, and it's a very long winter. And we were reading it in winter because I thought it'd be a nice topical read. But oh my word, January was dragging on, and the book was dragging on, and I was like, oh gosh. So I made the decision to put that one down. But actually, one of my children a few weeks later was like, where's that book? Why have we stopped reading it? You know, I was really enjoying it. So I got her the whole series on Audible, and she's worked her way through the whole series.
So other challenges? What would you say about other challenges?
My house is always a mess. They always make mess. I don't have time to tidy it up because they're always there.
Yes.
So yeah, we've had to learn a different approach to kind of cleanliness of the house rather than really tidy all the time because they just enjoy making a mess and being there. So that's one of our challenges.
We kind of do like a house reset.
Yeah.
Like first thing in the morning, they all have some chores that they do, but an actual general house reset we do first thing in the morning and just before dinner. Because otherwise we would spend all day clearing up after ourselves.
I can imagine
Because,
that.
yeah,
You've got a lot of stuff out.
got a
Yeah.
lot of stuff out, you know, a lot of toys out. Because I try not to let them just be on screens all of the time. So I therefore have to be okay with the fact that there's toys everywhere.
Toys everywhere. But I think, like we mentioned earlier, the feeling of that you kind of need to justify your decisions and sometimes it's just strangers and really kind of justify your reasons and explain your reasons for home educating can come as a bit of a challenge
Yeah.
when it's taken quite negatively, or sometimes the things that you've got to be very careful with what you say to not offend somebody that sends their children to school, and that's not what we want to do. But just like we wouldn't approach somebody and say, "Why are you sending your child to school?" But people do say that to us.
Yeah. Yeah, you do get a lot of negativity from people around you. People can be quite quick to judge. I think because it's not been hugely common in this country. I think people are often shocked that you do it. So, and I think the questions come from good places. But yeah, I would definitely say with you it is a challenge because you do. And I've got some family members who are really quite negative about it actually. And
You ought to sort your husband down.
He's on board now. He's on board.
I'm joking,
thankfully
sorry.
he's on board. But yeah, there's some other, you know, and that can be quite a challenge and be quite tricky because you do get the comments or the different
Comparisons
things.
as well can be tricky, can't it?
Comparisons really hard, yeah. With families, but also with the school system, I find that quite hard to actually be okay sometimes with the pace we're going at.
But that they should be hitting the milestones at the certain time,
Yeah.
that others rather than a year later or whatever. Yeah,
That's so prevalent in our society that actually, for me, sometimes I'm like, okay, I've chosen to do it this way, but I've got all these voices over here going, but she should be reading this and she should be able to do this by now. And you then kind of have to sit in that and sit in your decision. And you just have to remind yourself that you're playing the long game.
Yeah.
But actually, when you're in the trenches, that can be a little bit of a challenge.
I remember when I was at Leicester Uni doing my teacher training, early years teacher training, and the lady who'd written the textbook on it had gone to Sweden to look at their system, and this is why the culture and the way we do things is so interesting to me. Whereas they have a preschool, play school approach where they go out in the snow and they put on full boiler suits and they're outside playing in the snow for hours, in minus temperatures.
Yeah.
And they don't start writing and reading till 7.
7, yeah.
And she was like, well, aren't you concerned? And it was either Sweden or it was Italy. I think it actually could have been Italy, but they're both similar systems, I think. And the parents just laughed and they went, plenty of time.
Yeah.
With a dodgy Italian
Well, the
accent.
research-
Plenty of time, but
Yeah.
it's
the
very different,
research
isn't it?
shows actually that they all catch up around 10 and 11, no matter what age they start at.
So I suppose as well, even if your child is in a state system or whatever system that they're in, is that if you're giving that support as a parent and you're playing that active role in whatever way you're doing and you're having that as a positive thing, those milestones and the comparison issue shouldn't be something that causes you problems because if you're involved in that way as a parent, that's just a really positive thing, isn't it?
I think the other
Yeah.
thing I've just been reading a book called The Anxious Generation, talking about how children need play more and real lived experiences. And I
Yeah.
think one thing that I guess you guys can offer is more of that hands-on experience. And I love following you guys on Instagram and seeing what you get up to. And they have great fun, don't they? You go on adventures regularly. Obviously, it's not every day glossy and wonderful, but I'm interested in how if you're learning about something, you go and visit it in person. You don't just watch it on a screen. You're living it and feeling it and
Weren't you in the
smelling
Romans
it.
and you went and camped up near Vindolanda?
Yes, we did.
I
We wanted to come with you on that one.
that picture.
We also did a Roman day with our friends, and all of the children chose a Roman character to become. So they had to choose their character. They had to be historically correct. They had to make themselves an outfit, and they had to come up with a proper name. And then all of the children had to make something to sell at a Roman market that would have been sold at, like, in those days. And we did the Romans well. We had a really good
You didn't cook a dormouse, did you?
Well, we did. So that was the other thing. We had a Roman lunch, but we did make our dormouse out of chicken fillets.
Anybody come as a slightly unhinged Nero or something like that?
We did have an emperor.
Fantastic.
Great. Okay, so I know it's a question I've thought about before, and I'm sure you've heard a few times, but it's how long do you plan to do this for? Because for some families, I understand, it can be like just a few years. Others, it's like, oh, what about when they get to high school? And will you then transition into a high school setting or not? And how will they adjust?
Yeah.
So how are you...
Doing exams, GCSEs.
You know, obviously that's an ongoing conversation you may be having, but where are your thoughts on this?
This is the question I get asked the most, even though my eldest is only 9.
So the motto kind of amongst us home ed mums is that you only ever need to be one step ahead of your kids. We get so many questions about how are you going to teach, A-level maths or, whatever you're going to do. But it's a complete nonsense that I need to have a really good grasp of a subject to be able to teach it. And I know that sounds wild. But as I said earlier, I'm learning alongside my children. And my goal and my intention is to create lifelong learners out of my children. So therefore, I model that. If I don't know something, I'm just honest. And I say, we'll find it out together. And I'm also not worried about the timings of school learning. So that gives me more room for manoeuvre. So, I don't necessarily think that my children will do science in the way that a child would do science at year 8, for example. I remember being in year 8 and we had a full proper lab and everything, but...
Bunsen burners.
Yeah.
That's
there,
what
are quite a few home educators who have their own Bunsen burners.
That's like A-star level.
That's one of the beautiful things about home education is that we kind of club together, don't we? So actually one of our friends is a scientist. That's what she does.
So you go around and burn her house
down? That's my intention. We've not done it yet. And we sometimes do co-op learning and different things. There's also loads of options online and all the different things.
One thing I've noticed as well, because I'm working now, I've come out of teaching and I'm tutoring children in the care system, and a lot of those aren't going to hit the milestones for the age and GCSEs, but there are a lot, and it's so interesting that we grow up with this pressure for our children to hit the milestones. But there are lots of college courses, and you can stay in education for certain periods, and there are all sorts of different courses, and it is a minefield. I can't get my head around all the HNs and and they keep changing them T levels, and we're recording this just before A-level and GCSE exams come out, aren't there? But there is loads of different ways of doing
Yeah,
it,
there are.
Yeah.
and there doesn't we don't have to follow this exact route, do we? So this is freeing
No.
up all sorts of people, isn't it? Just raising that sort of issue for all
Yeah,
of us.
and we've got friends who are sort of that stage ahead of us, which is amazing, isn't it? We've learnt so much from them. People who have gone through it, people who have done it in so many different ways, and people even within a family who have done it individually for each child, and that will be my intention.
Yeah.
You know, if one of my children, if the fit is for them to go into school, then we'll do it that way. But there's so many other options. You know, one of the local colleges now does a home education course where you can go in and do a part-time GCSE course where you do just your 3 or 4 core GCSEs, which is a great option because then you can carry on doing other things.
There's a rise in
alongside
virtual
it.
schools now. I know
Yeah,
somebody
there is,
who's come out of school for anxiety reasons, but he's enrolled in a virtual school and doing GCSEs that way, which is just it's
Another
interesting
way,
how
isn't it?
technology is changing
You
things.
can also put your kids in as an outside, can't think of the word right now, but applicant. So they can go into school just to take the exam and you can actually prepare for that at home. A lot of home educators spread them out so they don't do them all in one year.
Lovely.
Yeah, exactly.
Remembering my daughter doing 27 exams last year.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
So there are quite a lot of families that look at doing that. And then I also know families who have not done exams at all and have then gone in through either like apprenticeships or they've gone in through like access courses because they've got to a point where they knew what they wanted to do. So they've done that. So there is a huge variety of ways of doing it. So my answer to your question is I intend to home educate them for as long as they want to and I want to. I believe that will probably carry on into secondary. I'm certain it will carry on into secondary. But I think all of it will, for each one of them, will look really different.
Yeah, exactly the same as Holly. Yeah, just like you can kind of evaluate the process when you're in school, as home educators, we can just annually or termally or evaluate how their education is going and how we want to tailor it for them. And if that means a college course at a certain age, even when they're 11 or 12, because they're ready to take this next further and they've got a passion for a certain subject, then we can tailor it to do that. Or if they don't know at all what they wanted to do when they're older at 12, when sometimes you get asked in secondary school and you have no idea at 12 or 13, that actually we can just carry on with our kind of learning atmosphere that we're doing, and then actually when they're older we can focus a bit more. But
Yeah, I'm just going to share another Sally Clarkson quote here.
Do it.
I think she says it
Do
really
it.
nicely. We all love a bit of Sally, don't we? But she says, teaching and inspiring children is an organic process that takes each child and family into consideration for their unique skills, abilities, vision for life and capacity. Considering that every teacher has a personality, a unique personal story and different training, we must come to the understanding that we have great agency and scope for applying principles of teaching and shaping children in a wide variety of situations. In other words, trust yourself and your story to be adequate to inspire and create a love of learning in your home within the limits of your preferences, your circumstances and your ideals. I think that is just, a really great quote to encourage anybody that's on this journey, that you've got what you need and within your preferences you can find what you need around you as well.
That's really interesting.
Yeah.
Fantastic. What would you say are opportunities? So how do you connect with others as being with other children in a larger setting? Connecting with things that you may not have at home. How do you access some of those things? What sort of things do you do there?
So this is the other question that home educators get asked constantly, the age-old socialisation question.
Your kids don't get out, they must be sat at home.
Yeah. Do your children stay at home all day by themselves? And how do they learn to socialise if they're not in a room with their peers? But yeah.
yeah, there's a huge home ed world out there, like we've already said, which is growing massively. So there are loads of groups with all different interests. You can probably find a topic that your child is interested in, go and find a home ed group should you wish to participate in kind of group learning. There's other relationships though and connections that aren't solely kind of their maybe peer group that have massive impact, like their sibling relationships. Like I said earlier, how they spend much more time obviously with their siblings than they would if they were in different year groups at school. And actually for the most part, my kids love it and they love being with each other, and they're definitely learning different interactions with them that they can actually then express with peers in other group settings and other sports groups and etc. that they go to.
So one of the things people say to me about my children the most is that they really enjoy talking to my children. And I think that is one of the huge benefits of home education, really, is that we have a lot of time for multi-generational socialisation.
Yeah, so there's like a church you get involved in.
Yeah, so we're part of a church. They come to a community cafe where, like, my 10-year-old plays chess with, like, old men all the time. Yeah. But he doesn't just play chess with them. He has conversations with them. And, it's just really wonderful. Oftentimes, if I can't find one of my children, I go and look outside and they're sat on the compost bin talking to our neighbour over the hedge, But they've learnt to be sociable just in very different ways. And we are part of lots of groups, and there is a huge, like Meg said, there's a huge world of home ed groups now. For everything. In fact, there's too many. I've had to slim down
a bit. Yeah.
Wow.
Could be out all the time. Too much socialising.
Yeah. Oh, that is one of the things people say the most, isn't it? Actually, that we're just doing too much, and actually, I need to rein it back in now to prioritise that time at home, because there is so many groups.
And I remember you saying to me a while ago that you look after each other so you can do things as well. So like I remember there was a time where two of your girls were doing dance or gymnastics, and Meg or somebody else was looking after the other one, so you could support. That's quite interesting. You build strong friendships, I guess, with those in that community who can support one another practically, as well as giving advice and sharing thoughts.
That is one of the negatives I think that you mentioned earlier. I don't know if you mentioned it or not, but that you don't get that time for yourself. So
I did mention
you didn't
that.
mention it, did you? But we do try and swap kids, and actually, because we're very aware of that in our community. So I'll say, right, it's summer holidays, I'll have your kids this day and you have my kids next week, and then you get a day to, go to the book farm or something.
Oh, we know the place. Yes, you told us about
We can always justify a book, can't we?
Yeah, always.
Seen this one?
Yes.
Oh, that sounds really exciting. But I guess if you're somebody listening to this podcast, you're thinking, oh, this sounds something that might work for my family. How do you get started? Where can or do you begin? I've got this idea. I feel it's right to home educate my children. What do I do? Where do I begin? What resources do I need?
Yeah. So this is a massive question.
It is. Just sort of throw that
and
way.
it's completely dependent on how you want to home educate, really.
So that you can obviously buy lots of curriculum, ready-made curriculum. You could follow a programme that tells you exactly what to buy, what to study, gives you the timetable of the day, if that's how you wanted to home educate your children. Or you could go the complete opposite and use no resources at all and just grab some great books to read, and a pencil is probably useful, and some paper. That's a great resource. But yeah, there's definitely a massive scale of different methods that you could follow that would mean that you could have a variety of resources. It's not kind of limited.
So if we took me and Meg as an example, we both follow Charlotte Mason's philosophy. So a great place to start with that is reading her works on education. She's written 6 volumes of books, which are really helpful. And then there's a whole host of other books around that you can read that have been written about her. But that's our base, isn't it? But we do it completely differently in the outworking.
Yeah, so I loosely follow a programme, an online programme, free programme, that gives me kind of book ideas, topic ideas, just to take away some of the thinking for me. I don't need to think about what artist to study this term or composer or poet, but actually it will give me those. And if I came across something that I didn't want to study, then I would just swap it for something else. So that's why I personally say I loosely follow a programme, because I do like to tailor it for what we enjoy and like. So yeah, I loosely follow a kind of structure and a book list to help me get some ideas, but
I just wing it by the seat of my pants, really.
Some do that.
I choose the topics that I think are relevant in life right now first. So I'm starting to think about September at the moment, and my 7-year-old, her big question at the moment is, in the Bible, it says that God created the heavens and the earth. So where did God live before that?
Whoa.
So we're going to look at that.
just a small topic.
Just a small topic. Yeah.
So she's been asking like different people that question as we go along. But I'm now thinking, right, what can we look at in September that's going to help with this hugely, hugely abstract question? And that will guide the scriptures that we look at. I think we're going to look at like the wonder of creation, and we're going to look at different parts of like what the Bible says about creation. I'm thinking of like the verse in Job where it talks about the stars singing during creation, doesn't it? So we're going to kind of do something like that, which, like I say, I'm flying by the seat of my pants.
Wow.
I'm just winging it.
I've got a cassette by Ern Baxter.
Great.
And somebody asked him the question in the beginning. He says, well, before creation, where was God?
Yeah.
And what was he doing?
Yeah.
And he said, my reply to that was creating hell for people who ask silly questions. I don't know anything else, Lisa. He's an amazing teacher, but I just thought, but
I
fantastic.
thought you were going to give me a really good
No. It was just a preaching joke. It's not going to help you.
But they are the sorts of things that guide me in where we go and what we do.
So you're child-led.
Yeah,
effectively,
child-led
so what are they needing?
in terms of, some things, and then
It's thinking beyond, you can see the earth, and it's a big question, isn't it? You're
It's
thinking,
not for now, Alex.
No, but it's thinking big, isn't it?
It is,
It's going beyond something.
Yeah.
There's deep philosophy. You'll be touching on some degree level philosophy, I'm sure, in that. Or questions of life.
And we did the same when we learnt about dinosaurs. Actually, they wanted to know about dinosaurs, so we really got into it, and I got a whole load of books to help me because I didn't know anything. And actually we looked at like different worldviews, different faith views. We looked at all sorts of things.
Wonderful.
And actually, that's really deep. But Noah was probably 6 at the time, but we've got the time to churn through and to look at those sorts of things. So I do follow them in that way.
Yeah. I would say as well, as a ex-primary teacher, and now I just do tutoring, but just for people whose children are in the state system, just make sure that our lives aren't so busy that we have time to have those awe-and-wonder conversations at home, that we organise our time so we have that time together to talk, we have that time together to think, isn't it? And that's the challenge I'm getting from this, is that it doesn't matter who we are, let's build those learning and family times in, that we're not so crazy busy in our day-to-day times. And we have to make decisions about our lives to give ourselves time, don't we?
Yeah, and whether your kids are in school or not, you can see your life as being putting into your children and being the person that is the most prevalent in terms of who they become.
Yeah, and it's challenging in that way, and so positive, just to make people think, to make me think about that, isn't it? And why we do stuff.
Yeah,
fantastic.
I think another massive resource as well is people and community.
Yeah.
I think we've got a lot from each other and from other friends, and just online communities as well, and just really finding community to really help you through and get advice and ask questions. And that's how I first started, was seeing these people and actually just asking questions. I don't think we mind questions as long as they're from a kind heart.
And then so a bit more practically, what about a typical day? So what would a typical day look like? You say you can have a slightly slower you mentioned earlier, slightly slower get up, so you're not rushing out the door at whatever time.
Yeah,
give us a
so
little bit more information.
mine, we kind of get up and we have breakfast, and then we will get what I call our book basket out. And so in there we'll have, we normally have something to do with our faith. So we'll read some scripture, we pray together, maybe read a story at that time of day, and then we have like other read aloud, like topical read alouds that we would read at that point. So that's kind of our sitting down chunk. And then my children have an independent list that they would go through. So either that is they'll do it completely independently, or it's independently with me. So that is kind of free flow. They go and do that by themselves. And then essentially that is kind of our day. It's normally lunchtime by then. We've definitely had a snack or second breakfast. Homeschoolers love second breakfast. But we're almost always finished by lunchtime, but we'll often have like 20 minutes, half an hour of quiet time after lunch where they will go away and they'll do some reading, which is often like pre-assigned reading from me. So that's kind of our day. And then we go to groups or whatever in the afternoons.
Yeah, similar to us. We have our like morning time, we call it, where all my children kind of, as well as they can, sit at the table, eat breakfast normally at the same time.
You always do it with food, don't you?
Yeah, always with food. Where we like read the Bible, read a poem, have a bit of a devotional time, listen to a hymn or a folk song, have that quite a short time together so that all of us can do it together. Then we might go and get ready and have a break and make our beds, come back, and then it's about an hour or 2 hours usually of kind of our formal learning, as you would say, when I'm reading to the older girls. So the younger two at this point are just playing and distracting us normally. So I would read to them and have a narration from them, and then they would maybe do some maths, or then I would read again another topic, and then they would maybe do some copy work. So it's a bit of that for an hour to two, depending on how many distractions we have. And then, like Holly, we normally finish them for lunch in order for the kids to have more free time, outside play, meeting up with friends, and then their activities that I need to write down again in my calendar because we've got different things on different days, and gymnastics and ballet and swimming, and I need to get that back in the zone for September with all of those. That's...
And I suppose that's where your group
day
would come in. So things like when you're sitting, having those sort of 2 hours, how you maximise that time and how you work with each child, and a different child might need a different learning approach. I suppose that's when, you talk to each other and other people, and you pull your hair out and go, well, this worked with this child, but it doesn't work with that child.
Yeah.
What do I do? And trying things differently. And I suppose there's a lot of that as you go along, isn't it? Learning from your mistakes and just.
One of the biggest resources to me has been home ed communities, really, and the Charlotte Mason community specifically for me has just been invaluable, because you do have hundreds of parents, well, thousands of parents now, that have gone through it before and know, and you can just say, help.
Yeah, well, teachers at school do the same. Yeah. Like, they do start, they don't know all the answers, and they're making mistakes, and they're making up as they go along, and it's, very, very
and
similar.
Books. Great books.
Yeah.
Great. Oh, so having the best books to recommend. Yeah. Wonderful.
So to close, because we've covered an awful lot here, if we can try and wrap it up. So what 3 key points would you give to a parent who's considering this journey and helping them make that decision? What would you suggest they think about or do?
So first of all, I'd say pray about it. God really cares about this stuff. He cares about you as a mother, and he's given you to your children on purpose. So pray about their education and how he wants you to do that.
We've talked about these, and we came up with this exact same three, didn't we? Pray. Our second point would be to research and read, glean from the community out there, glean from mothers that have gone before us, and do your research and really read up on what's best for your family. Yeah,
and find books that really speak into you and speak into who you want to be. So people that really inspire me are Sally Clarkson, as I've said. And then I meant to check her name before we came. I think it's Susie Macaulay Schaefer. Is that right? For the children's sake.
She read
the book is called For the Children's Sake.
It's a great book.
And if you are considering home educating your children and you're a Christian, I would suggest that you start with that. It's an absolutely brilliant resource. Maybe we could put in the footnote her actual name.
Send that to me, we'll put it in the link in the show notes.
Now I'm completely doubting myself and I don't think that's a name. And then Leah Bowden from Modern Miss Mason has been a huge inspiration to me, and she has started a enormous community.
She's local, yeah.
She's local, and she started an online community years ago, which is just thriving and huge, specifically for Charlotte Mason. But I'm going to finish with a quote from Leah, actually, which says, "We seek to be sources of inspiration who walk alongside children and help them find the treasure of knowledge that was meant for them, with solutions they can tie into the stories of their lives. As we observe the divine spark in them, we begin to understand who they really are and the valuable part they play in the world. We learn to celebrate raising humans who will add to the grand story of all of our lives." And I think for both of us, like, home education is a celebration of raising humans who will add to the world and add to the story of our lives. So,
wow.
I hope that's come across.
Wow. Do you know what? I was driving this morning in, and I was just, I don't know why, I suddenly thought, what would be my what would I say if I was, like, passing away and you're saying to your kids, what would their legacy be? And I was thinking almost similar things. It was about find your place in this world, find out what you can contribute to the world and play that role.
Yeah.
Which is just fascinating. It's so similar to that, and that's just made me feel spooky.
Yeah. And being a mum that gets to input into that is just
a real privilege,
such a privilege.
Wonderful. Wonderful. So thank you so much for you guys coming in today. It's great just to explore this, to learn and just find out about how people do things in different ways and just learn about that. It's just so fascinating. So thank you very much. Please remember to like our podcast. That's great. Do share them with other people. We love it when other people find out about the podcasts and have learned some things and really find it interesting and informative. So thank you about that. And find our Meet the Parents page on our church website as well, and that'd be wonderful. So thank you very much, and we'll see you next time.